It was one of those nights, you know? The kind where the wind howls just a little too much like a person crying, and every floorboard creak sounds like a footstep. I live alone in a pretty old house, the kind with a lot of history and even more strange noises. I'm used to it mostly. I'd chalk it all up to old pipes and settling foundations, pull the covers a little tighter, and drift off. But this night was different. I'd gone to bed around 11, completely exhausted after a long week. I remember falling asleep almost instantly. The next thing I knew, my eyes fluttered open. It wasn't a noise that woke me or a bad dream. There was a feeling, a primal, gut-wrenching feeling that I was not alone. The room was pitch black, except for the faint, silvery moonlight filtering through a gap in my curtains. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the dead silence. I tried to tell myself I was being ridiculous, that I was just half asleep and disoriented. I laid there, frozen, listening, nothing, just the sound of my own ragged breathing. I slowly, carefully turned my head to the side towards my knitstand. And that's when I saw it. Inches from my face, silhouetted against the pale moonlight, was a face. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't my imagination. It was there. A human face, dark and featureless in the shadows, just watching me. My scream was trapped in my throat, a silent, agonizing choke. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Every instinct was screaming at me to run, to fight, to do something, but my body was paralyzed by pure, unadulterated terror. The face didn't move. It just hovered there, its presence a suffocating weight in the room. I could feel its gaze on me, even though I couldn't see its eyes. It felt ancient and cold. I don't know how long I laid there, locked in this terrifying standoff. It could have been seconds, or it could have been hours. Time seemed to stretch and warp. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of the impossible. Who is this? How did they get in? What do they want? Every scenario that flashed through my head was more horrifying than the last. Was this it? Was this how it all ended for me? Then, as slowly as it appeared, the silhouette began to recede. It didn't turn or walk away. It just pulled back, melting into the deeper shadows of the corner of my room until it was gone. Just like that. The space where it had been was now empty, but the feeling of its presence lingered, a cold spot in the air. For a long moment, I still didn't move, convinced it was a trick. My ears were straining for any sound, a creak on the floor, a door opening, anything, but there was nothing. Only the sound of the wind, which now sounded less like a cry and more like a mournful sigh. Finally, a surge of adrenaline broke the paralysis. I scrambled out of bed, fumbling for the lamp on my knitstand. My hands were shaking so badly it took me 3 tries to find the switch. The room was flooded with warm yellow light. It was empty. My bedroom was exactly as I had left it. The window was locked, the door was shut. There was no sign of a break-in, no muddy footprints, no misplaced items, nothing. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat on my bed with the lights on, a heavy book clutched in my hands like a weapon, watching the door until the sun came up. The first rays of dawn felt like a rescue. When daylight finally filled the room, the terror of the night began to feel distant, almost like a nightmare. But I knew it wasn't. The memory was too vivid, the fear too real. I called the police later that morning. They came, they looked around, they were very professional, very polite, but there was nothing they could do. No signs of forced entry, no evidence that anyone had been there at all. They took my statement, but I could see the look in their eyes. The look you give someone who is either lying or losing their mind. They suggested it might have been a vivid dream or sleep paralysis. I know what sleep paralysis is. I've read about it. It's a terrifying experience, I'm sure. But this wasn't that. With sleep paralysis, you're aware you can't move. I wasn't just aware. I was staring into a face that shouldn't have been there. a physical presence, and the way it left. It didn't just disappear like a hallucination. It retreated. It moved. For weeks, I was a wreck. I barely slept. I bought new locks, a security system, a dog. I left every light in the house on all night. Every shadow looked like a figure. Every noise made me jump out of my skin. My friends tried to help. They suggested logical explanations, a reflection, a trick of the light, a coat hanging on a chair that looked like a person in the dark. I checked everything. There's nothing in my room that could have created that silhouette. Nothing. I started digging into the history of my house. It was built in the early 1900s, and like most old houses, it had its share of stories. I spent hours in the local library archives, scrolling through old newspapers and property records. I found out that a family had lived here for over 50 years. The parents, the Millers, passed away peacefully in the house, but they had a son. His name was Thomas. According to the records, Thomas was a recluse. Neighbors from that time described him as a quiet, strange man who rarely left the house after his parents died. He lived alone for decades. The last article I found about him was a small piece in the local paper from the 1970s. He had passed away in the house. The article mentioned he was found in his bed. An officer at the scene was quoted as saying it looked like he had just faded away in his sleep. A chill went down my spine, faded away, just like the face in my room. Was it him? Was it the ghost of Thomas Miller, still lingering in his lifelong home, just checking in on the new resident? It sounds crazy, I know. If someone told me this story, I'd probably be skeptical too. But I was there. I saw what I saw. The strange thing is, after I learned about Thomas, things in the house changed. The creepy feeling lessened. The unexplained noises didn't stop, but they felt less menacing. It's like putting a name to the fear made it less powerful. It hasn't happened again. I've never woken up to that face since that night. But I'm also not the same person I was before. I still sleep with a nightlight on. I'm still a light sleeper. And sometimes, on nights when the wind howls just right, I'll lie awake and listen. And in the quiet moments, I'll whisper into the dark, "Good night, Thomas. Hope you're resting easy." Maybe it's silly. Maybe I'm just talking to myself. But somehow it helps. It makes the house feel less empty and a little more like we're sharing the space. It's still his house after all. I'm just living in it. So have you ever experienced something you just can't explain? A moment that completely defied logic and made you question everything you thought you knew? Let me know your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear that I'm not the only one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.